Chris here with Chuwi's second Helio X27 tablet. So this time around we've got the same CPU like the iPad, but we have a much better screen. We have 4GB of RAM, 64GB of storage with this one here. It is also dual SIM, and most importantly, the modem that's in this one, this is the European model, does support your European bands, including band 20 LTE, which is great. Micro SD card support on this as well. It does have GPS, and I have the optional keyboard dock stand case, whatever you want to call it, for this, and it turned out to be quite a nice keyboard too. I didn't expect it to be as good as what it is. The package is nice, the build is good, but as you see later on in the review that the performance is still lacking here with that Helio X27.
The tablet comes out of the box with a pre-applied screen protector, just outlining some of the key specs here, but you can see those now listed on the right hand side of the screen. We also get a Type-C cable in the box, and then our charger. This is an EU charger because I've got the EU spec. It's rated to 5 volts 2 amps, and sadly it does not support MediaTek's Pump Express, so it takes over 5 hours to fully charge, so it's very slow. You can also buy 2 optional extras, which is the keyboard, which is quite a high quality keyboard. As you can see, it looks a little bit like the iPad Pro keyboards. And then we have the Hi9 H3, which is the optional Stylus that has 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity. The keys on the keyboard here do have reasonable spacing, and the quality and feel of them is good. They have about 1.4mm of key travel, and it's a felt-like suede material that they have used on the inside, and then a rubber type material on the outside with the Chuwi logo you can see right here. And here is our 5-pin pogo port and the docking stays. So when you have that keyboard docked into the tablet, you can see that it brings it right up the keyboard to the screen, so again similar to the iPad Pros. The keyboard can be then folded up to protect the screen, like so, but it doesn't protect the rear of the tablet. As you can see, that is still exposed and could be scratched. The tablet weighs 543 grams, and then with the keyboard case, that brings it up to 841 grams. Under a kilo, that's not too bad. Now it is about 8.9mm thick, and with the case, that brings it up to 15mm thick. The tablet has nice rounded edges that feels good in hand, and we do have these volume buttons that are made out of metal, which is good. Often they're plastic. Right here is a 5-megapixel autofocus camera. It takes average photos. I will give you a video sample of the front-facing camera later in this review. And you can see this little tiny slot here. Well, that is one of the 2 loudspeakers. The screen does come with a pre-applied screen protector, and yes, as you can see, it is super reflective, and it's going to be picking up fingerprints as well. What we have here too is a Type-C port. Now it does not support display out, sadly, and there is no micro HDMI or mini HDMI out on this tablet. Manufacturers from China seem to be dropping that recently, which is a real shame. And then on the top, there is also a 3.5mm headphone jack, which supports microphones, so you, of course, can use that for voice calls. This does have voice calls. It's got a dialer on here. It's dual SIM with 4G, and it does have the European bands. Right here, you can see I have just pulled out the SIM card tray, and it will take either 2 nano SIM or micro SD card. The output from that 3.5mm headphone jack isn't actually too bad for a MediaTek device. There's no static on my unit, but it's still not the best quality you would get. The rear of the tablet has a metal alloy housing on here, and it has a matte black paint job, so it feels good in hand. It's grippy, but of course it's going to be leaving a lot of smudges and fingerprints. Down the bottom you'll find the pogo port connector, 5-pin with the 2 little holes either side. That's for the stays. And overall, the build quality of the tablet is really quite good. I do like it. So the screen is a common one. I've seen it in quite a few other tablets here. This is a sharp IPS panel and has a resolution of 2560 by 1600. Now the bezels, they're not going to win any awards. Now for me, this price range, it's perfectly fine. This is not trying to be an iPad Pro 11-inch model, no. But what we do have is a very decent screen because the gamma checks out at 2.2, which is spot on there. And it also has a maximum output brightness of about 360 lux, which is also very good. And it is a fully laminated display. Images look very good on this screen. And I've noticed too as well that the touch response, a little bit like the iPad, just isn't quite there. It needs some optimization. Now Chuwi did mention to me, this is Chuwi support on AliExpress. I did email them and told them that I'm having a few performance issues with this tablet, as you'll see later on, and they said that there is a patch in the works for this particular model that's going to help improve things. I'm crossing my fingers for that. We got a similar patch with the iPad, and it did actually help a little bit. So overall, this screen just is really good. It makes this tablet, it's just a shame that the performance, as you can see here with touch, see that choppiness? That it's just not as smooth as it could be, considering the fact that we have the same spec with other manufacturers using the same exact Helio X27, that deca-core chipset with the Mali T880 GPU clocked at 875 MHz. I mean, on paper, it sounds wonderful. We should have decent performance here, but you're just going to see this sluggishness in the UI, and everywhere, it's just not as smooth as it could be, which makes the tablet a little bit frustrating. So it is running stock Android, which is great. This is Android 8. The security patch level is from July, so it's a little old now. So hopefully they can fix that. But I wouldn't hold my breath on this ever getting Android 9. You're never going to normally see this with these budget tablets. They never ever bother. And that performance pulls through into things like Chrome here, so you can see the scrolling on that. I mean, it's okay, but you will notice that it's just not as smooth as, say, a Snapdragon 660 tablet. And if they'd gone Chuwi with a better chipset in this would really be, I feel, quite a good tablet. Video streaming services, so YouTube, you're going to get that in 1080p, and you're also going to have apps like Amazon Prime Video here that I have. I've been watching some episodes of Vikings, and this has been working out well. So it will start off in a poorer quality. I think it's something like 480p when it starts out, and then it eventually improves the quality up to 1080p, and it does look really good, so no issues with streaming. Now Netflix, I have tested out Netflix. I've had this on here, and you're only going to get standard definition because it does not support Google's Widevine level 1. It's stuck on level 3, and that means Netflix will only be standard definition, sadly. I've had a few of you asking me about PDF support. So this is a relatively large PDF file, but nothing's going to match, of course, the iPads, like the iPad Pros, just the absolute king at looking at PDFs. That CPU that it's got on it, the newer ones, and even the older ones just fly through PDF files. So you can see that it looks really quite good because of the screen. Now when you double tap in, it works fine. You know, there's maybe a little bit of animation stutter there. And when you start to scroll ahead really quick, it's going to need a little bit of time to catch up, as you can see right there. But overall, at your normal typical reading pace, if you were going through it like this, I find it's fine. And I will give you a close-up of what that text looks like. And as you can see here, because of that screen resolution, it does look very good. After all, this is a very nice panel that Chuwi has selected for this tablet. Now this keyboard, after using it now for 4 days, is quite good. It's very practical, so much better than using the on-screen keyboard, of course. And I do find that once you get used to this layout, now we do have it slightly crammed in here. When you look at it, we've got some handy shortcuts as well. So we've got ones here to control the screen brightness. You've got copy and paste here. You've got a shortcut there for email, browser, media keys, and even the volume there and to lock it. This is good. This is handy. So it's a practical keyboard. Yes, it's a little close to the screen, but once you adapt, it's certainly better than nothing, and a little similar, as mentioned, to the iPad Pro keyboards that you get there, the layout. But I actually like the feel of these keys better. They're what I would call more proper keys, whereas the ones on the iPad Pro, when I was using that one, they have a bit of a different feel to them because they're all like sealed. Now that's probably to keep dust and stuff out of that, but overall, actually quite a decent keyboard. On first boot with the tablet, you get approximately 57 gigabytes free, and of course, micro SD card support. I've tested up to 128 gigabytes. I've done a few file transfers with it. It is a little slow, but there's no issues with that. And that internal storage, it checks out. It is eMMC 4.5.1 spec, and you can see that these read and write speeds, they are good for this type of storage. Now wireless, it does have wireless AC and very good speeds for this chipset. Just over here, 200 megabits per second, which is great. And I, of course, have tested out 4G. So there are your 4G speeds. Now, you probably ought to get faster with your own network here. As mentioned a few times, I'm using Orange with this particular SIM card, and even my Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus can't really get much faster than this. So that's good. Range and signal strength does check out as well. So this is just in the studio here in the normal room I record in. I went over to the other side of the apartment. The signal does drop off, as of course you'd expect, but it works out fine. We're not losing too much speed here. And it does have GPS on board. That's something that's part of the Helio X27, and they have it enabled, but we don't have a hardware compass on this one. It gets an accuracy of around 4 to 3 meters, which is fine. It doesn't lock on to all of the satellites, and it is very slow to first get a lock, but it's good to have this option. It's just a shame there's no hardware compass, which would make it even better. And here is our Antutu score, so close to 100,000. That checks out. It's on par with other Helio X23 or X27 chipsets there, so that is fine. And then onto battery life. So I was using wireless here, so if you're not on wireless the whole time, if you're using 4G, expect about 20, maybe even 30% lower results here. But I managed to get 10 hours. Now this was with the brightness at approximately 30%, which is still reasonably bright, probably what you're looking at more or less now. And I feel it's quite a good result here, considering that this is a 20 nanometer chipset. It's not the most efficient, it has 10 cores, but of course it has those lower clocked cores as well. That's why the result here is quite good. Now if you're going to be gaming, then expect this result to be halved. Gaming is very demanding, and that is using all of the cores then, so you probably get about 5 hours max. But overall, I feel it checks out for battery life, and if you're using it offline and on a lower brightness, I can see people getting easily over 12 hours of continual on-screen time. So this is what the camera is like. You can see the quality's, it's okay, it's average. And they do have, I feel, an optimized angle here for the camera, considering it's only got that one position when you put it in the stand. So that is okay. Now if you switch over to the rear camera, you get a lot of viewfinder lag. The focus can be a little bit slow, but at least it does have an autofocus. But as I say in most of these videos, that your mobile phone will take a much better photo and video with the rear cameras of this one. They're only 5 megapixels. And overall, this front-facing webcam I feel is fine for Skype and use like that, which I've tested it in. It works, so that's the main thing. The Hi9 Plus here has 2 speakers on the rear. They're rear outwards firing, and they actually sound okay. Normally speakers on these tablets are pretty bad, but these ones I would rate as above average for this particular tech that I review, but here is a sample of them. When it comes to gaming, games like Shadow Fight 3 here, you can see it's playable, but there's a bit of noticeable lag. Now, all of the games out there, it's going to be able to play this particular chipset. Now, let's take a look at a more demanding game, which is PUBG. Well, I mean, at least it is playable on this hardware, and it is performing a little bit better than the iPad with its 3 gigabytes of RAM. Of course, with this particular tablet, we've got an additional gigabyte, and it's got a total of 4, and that is helping out. But if you're after the smooth is best kind of performance in a game like PUBG, then you're going to be disappointed. And even though it was slow, I did manage to get a win here against mostly bots. So what about that Stylus? So this Stylus, we know it supports 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity. It is the Hi9 H3. It's been used on other Chuwi tablets, but here it doesn't seem to support the pressure sensitivity. When I write on it now, and you can see, look at that input lag. This is Adobe Sketch, by the way. You can see it's a little bit slow, but if I press down harder, it makes no difference. Now, the accuracy of the nib tip is good, and if I'm writing there and then touch the screen, it does seem to have some level of palm rejection, but the detection is very poor of the Stylus because it only seems to happen right when it's touching. There's no hover feature as well, so you don't see that little tiny dot when you hover around like you do with other Styluses. Now, handwriting with this, I have done a test, and I'll just do a little one right now. Is very poor and not really recommended. So I wouldn't be getting this particular tablet for the Stylus. Sadly, it's not really there, is it? With no pressure sensitivity and that palm rejection only working when it's touching it without that hover feature, it makes writing just so difficult.
So there we go. Sadly, we've got such a nice package here, really. Okay, the bezels are, they look like 2014 or something. But we have a very nice panel in this. The gamma checks out, and it is also very bright. It's fully laminated, good colors. It is a really good, decent screen. Even the build quality is nice. I like what they've done with the rounded edges. 4G support, we've got GPS, and we can also make voice calls. There's a lot of things going for this. It's got the European bands as well. Very nice keyboard. But it all doesn't really matter when the performance of the tablet is just a little bit sluggish. It's a little bit laggy at times. When you start to do some heavy multitasking, you really notice it too. So it's the ROM optimization I feel is where it's lacking. I know with the TechTablets T20 that I reviewed that has the same chipset, the same RAM, it does run a lot smoother. So it's not the hardware, partly the hardware, but it's more the software, I feel. So if Chuwi can optimize it, and that patch will come through hopefully soon for this, that does pick up the performance, then it would be a recommended tablet. And what is really sad to see, why are they not going with, if they can stretch their budget out a little bit more, I'm sure people would be happy to be paying another 15, 20 US, whatever the cost is going to be, to have the Helio X30. The X30's got a better GPU in it, and even a Snapdragon. If they could swap over to Qualcomm, I wouldn't even be bothered if it was a Snapdragon 625 would still run a lot better than the Helio X27 in this, I'm pretty sure. And if they could stretch out to say the 636 or even the 660, then they would have a very decent tablet then. Thank you so much for watching this review. Now I do have 2 other reviews of some other Android tablets. So one right up here, which is the Mi Pad 4, and that is the HiPad up here, which is that other Helio X27 tablet that I reviewed from Chuwi. Bye for now.